Welcome to our 5th episode of Re-Strategizing and Resetting for Business Rejuvenation. I'm Jessie Leong, the host for tonight's interview. For every interview episode, we will share 3 different strategies for companies to re-strategize and realign for their businesses during this challenging time. And I would like to warmly welcome our speakers for tonight. Our anchor speaker, Mr. David Leong, and our guest speaker, Dr. Sussie and Mr. Shung. Mr. David Leong is the Managing Director of People Worldwide Consulting. He started his entrepreneurial ventures early, soon after he graduated from the National University of Singapore in 1994 with a Bachelor of Business Administration degree. He has founded various companies since graduation, and his businesses span across diverse fields from corporate finance, advisory and restructuring, IT and technology, search and recruitment. He founded iProperty in 1999 and filed for public listing in year 2000. David is widely regarded as an expert resource and a leader in the business field. His views are often sought by local media such as The Straits Times, Business Times, 联合早报 and 联合晚报 on economics, politics, and HR issues. And next, I would like to introduce our guest speakers, Dr. Sussie Ketit. Dr. Sussie Ketit is the Managing Director of SKIOLD Qingdao, China, Regional Director of SKIOLD Group, and Vice President of Singapore Institute of Building Limited. Singapore Institute of Building Limited was incorporated in 1981 to be the professional institute in Singapore for qualified professionals engaged in building practices in managerial, technical, or administrative capacity in the development, construction, and maintenance of buildings. And our next speaker is Mr. Khong. He is the Executive Director of advisor Clique and has 25 years of experience in risk planning, inheritance planning, and wealth management. And with that, I would like to welcome Mr. David Leong to share with us the first strategy. To you, Mr. David Leong.
Thank you, Jessie. So we're going to start this session, and this is the 5th run. Today I'll probably cut short the introduction of the fundamental, but I still go through why 36 strategy and the principle behind 36 strategy. Fundamentally, everything that we are dealing with, whether it's in business, in life, and whether it's in science or in math, we start with great nothingness, which is 0, and how we play from 0 to 1, which is the important part. So in here, you see 0 and 1 changing. So this is literally what we spoke about, which is the yin going to the yang, going back to the yin again, going back to the yang, going back yin again, go back to the yang. And this sequencing and this cyclical change, it's a pattern of all things. We undergo this 0-1 change every day in our body, right? Our body, when we rest, some cells die, some cells are born, and when we sleep, from the nighttime to the daytime, we will recover because the nighttime sleep allows us to have rejuvenation. So everything that we play with in terms of strategy always comes back into a circle. So everything that we deal with is always cyclical and is always in a circle. Now, if we were to cut the circle in half and flip the bottom half the other way, what you see is an S curve, right? And you flip the S curve back into the left, you'll see a whole circle again. So when you see an S curve, it simply means day breaks, goes to noon, afternoon, then goes back to nighttime again, and then it goes up to daybreak again. So life is all about the different S curve stretching across and repeating itself across a timeline. So everything is a circle. So we always start with emptiness first, 0. And then from the emptiness, which is called the wuji, the emptiness will grow into something, right? So this is where growth happens. Whether is it cell growth, which is growing through binary growth pattern. Binary growth pattern is 0, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, 1 to 8. That's just like your memory, RAM memory, right? We used to have 512, then we have 1028. But all these are doubling. So in our body, when cells grow, particularly cancer cells, they also grow in the same pattern from 2 to 4, 4 to 8, 8 to 16, 16 to 32. So those are binary growth. So from 0 to 1, they have a growth pattern. So when something is formed, it forms into, from Khong, it forms to Zhen, things that we thought we see as real, right? Wu, as in the object, Xing, as in the form of things that is formed. When the Zhen, Wu, Xing comes about, then you have the different ones that is around, right? Then the different objects start to have interaction. And interaction is no different from the magnetism forces that we play when we are kid. We play with magnets. So when we play with strategy, essentially we are dealing with the forces of attraction and repulsion, which is the play of polarity. In the play of polarity, we're talking about positive and negative. In science, we call it positive and negative, right? In metaphysics, it's a yin and a yang. And so what is there to play with forces? We can play with forces because between people to people, between me and Sussie, between me and my brother, between me and my peers, between me and my partners, there's a relationship. That relationship can be a relationship of attraction, can be a relationship of repulsion, right? So if we understand these forces, then we have to stand where we are and understand where is our upline, who begets us. The upline will be your boss, your benefactor, right? Your investor who invests in you because they give you a chance and they beget you. And I beget means I grow my downline. Who are the downline? Like Shung has an organization, and he's an organization full of advisors. And those advisors, team A, team B, team C, are his downline. So he begets them. I conquer. You conquer who? You conquer your vendors, the people who supplies to you. They are at a different end of the equation. So you conquer, you command, because you are the buyer, they are the seller. You command, so you conquer. Being conquered will be those people who are your competitors, your counterparties, who deals with you, right? The last one will be share bonds. That means equal, your peers, your founders. So in Chinese, it's called Sen Wo, means beget I. That means your upline. Wo Sen means your downline. Ke Wo, your competitors. Wo Ke, you command the relationship. And Tong Wo, which is peers, your brothers, your compatibles, your comparables. So after understanding all these different relationships, then you can start to play with the forces. If you don't understand the relationship, you can't play the forces. How do you play the forces where you don't know where you stand? So you need to understand where you stand and play with the different relationship. Therefore, in management terms, these are called stakeholders, right? Stakeholders in the system. So you understand what is a stakeholder relationship. Then after that, when you start to play with the forces, what do you play with? We play with optics. We play with sound. You play with optics, which is what people see. Now, what people see, what people think they see, may not be what it is, and that's the gift of the marketeer. A brand manager, solid marketeer, will be able to do market positioning in such a way that the length of the shadow is longer than the height of the body. How do we do that? We play with the sun, and as the sun moves, rises and set, the different angle of the sun will cast the shadow at a different point with different length. So if you know how to position yourself, that's why it's called positioning, market positioning. You run to the place where the sun will cast a longer shadow for you. And people will measure you and see you by the length of a shadow, and thinks that you are very tall, you are very big, you are very rich, you are very established, you are very accomplished because you have a very long shadow. But you're actually playing with the light, right? And that's all we have to play. So vision and the optics may not always be what you think it is, but again, it's a play of illusion. So all the strategy that we talk about is actually a play of illusion. After you play with all the illusion, then you realize that it's all going back to the emptiness again, right? Then after that, you create again and you play again. So every strategy that we play with, they're never permanent. They're only used for that moment, the space time that you need it. And after you cross the river, 此岸到彼岸, then you have to abandon it and move on. You cannot carry the same strategy and think that you're going to repeat it. It doesn't work that way. So all strategy, please bear in mind, this is not macro level strategy. These are tactical strategy we are talking about. Like I said, everything goes in a circle. You think that we go out of circle, we never go out of circle. Everything happens in the circle. You see all the circles spinning clockwise, anti-clockwise. They spin straight up. They spin the other way around. They squirrel around. For so long as you start moving, you do not stop, and there's movement, you will never die because you don't give up. A lot of times we lose is because we give up. There's always a way by wriggling. Even through the hole of a needle, you can even squeeze through it because you contort yourself to go through the hole of the needle. You can still cross over the other side. So for so long as you keep moving, and you turn clockwise, anti-clockwise, spin left, spin right, you will get through it. So applying strategy is the same formula. It's the same thing that what you see on the screen. You do not stay still. You spin all the time. You turn all the time to get through to the other side, from A to B. Now, this is very interesting. I shared with you the S-curve earlier on. And S-curve shows the flow, right? Every day when we live our life, and particularly in this very, very serious period, and unprecedented, because we're not going to see this period ever again. Never once in your life have you been asked to stay at home for months and you can't go out because the whole world got locked down. So how do we move from A to B? Whether is it a before Corona, BC, or after Corona, AC, life still goes on. Your tomorrow will always come. Your sun would still rise, right? The air is still there. But we all change the way we deal with things, right? So you see the blue line. This blue line is the normal day before Corona. So BC is the blue line. When we need to move from A to B. Now with the Corona, this is the red line, right? And there's a point of inflection where we need to change course because we now shifted course right now. Right now we are undergoing a maximum curvature. We're making a very sharp turn, and a lot of people get giddy in this COVID-19. They can't deal with it, right? But as you curve, you still need to bend back. And you realize that there's a migration of the curve line from the blue line to the red line, right? Because there's a force at X. So there's a maximum curvature right now. And then as it turns, we need to swing back into the same point. We still need to wake up tomorrow. Life never changed, but the way we deal with things must change in this period because AC will never be the same anymore. So the strategy we're considering is tactical level. How do we adjust? How do we bend? How do we turn? How do we flip so that we can get through the whole of the needle? This is what we learn in science in secondary school. How to create energy, conversion of energy, and what is potential energy, what is kinetic energy. Now we are now brought to a different height right now because of the change pathway. You saw the blue and the red line earlier on, right? We need to create and convert the energy, kinetic energy, the potential energy at the height, at the peak of the curve, to potential energy to kinetic energy. As it rolls down, the kinetic energy goes up. Now its potential energy is highest. Then after, as it rolls down, it goes down. So every day as we live, things still happens. People still goes to buy things, but except that the buying things right now, you don't leisurely walk into a supermarket. You got to buy your things very quickly or ask for delivery services. Goods are still delivered to you right now, but the logistic and flow of things change. We don't drive there to buy things right now. People orders and then things comes to them. So logistic industry start to boom suddenly because of the different way people want goods to be delivered to them. So money flows will also change, right? We may not see so much of fiat money right now. A lot of big economy, like China, they are coming out with their e-RMB, e-renminbi. Digital currency will come into real play right now, right? You don't have to use fiat money to change hand. People use e-currency, digital currency to trade. US is also doing that. And the day comes when China is doing that with their trading partners. You see another change in the environment. But does trade change? Things still pass hands between people. Trade did not change. The trades would still be the same, except the method of trading will be the different. So in COVID-19, AC, we'll see new way of doing things, but things still get done. KE becomes PE, PE becomes KE. Same principle. Okay, now 36 strategy is, like I said, very mouthful to remember. Hard to remember if you read it. And usually in 36 strategy, when you read it against the historical perspective of a different state fighting each other and how each generals and rulers attempts to use the strategy to win the battle. And by the time you finish reading the book, you'll probably get confused between the different strategy. But actually, the strategy is just a name. We apply strategy in our life every day, but we just do not know whether we are actually using it or not. So it makes no difference whether you know it or not, but things like that should be intuitive. So when you start to understand the principle of those strategy, when we apply it, like what I've shared earlier on, the fundamental of strategy, then you'll be very fluid. You'll just move around within the circle to make sure that you can come through from point A to point B or through the hole of the needle to get out to the other side. So today we'll focus on 3, and let's start with the first. 接刀杀人. Now this is interesting because there are how many stakeholders in here? There are yourself, the party that you want to show aggression, and then another party that is outside your relationship between yourself and the target. So instead of you dealing with the target direct, you use a third party, a proxy, to deal. So in simple English term, is counterparty aggression is determined. That means you know who you want to attack, while those on the same line and agenda are not. So deploying other effort, you're using other people's effort to drive your own agenda and delivering the needed outcome without expending your own energy and effort. So how do you play with that? You play through influence. You use influence to deal. Can we come to the next slide? Now, this is a planetary movement. And I just take it an example how planets influence each other's movement. You know, the orbits between our planets are so fixed, and there's a principle behind it. And you ask yourself, why would the orbit be so regular and the pattern so repetitive? What causes the moon to attract the wave in our ocean that forms the high tide and low tide in our sea? And there is no line that's attached, but it's a play of gravity. So gravity is a force. So in science, we know there are 4 big forces: strong nuclear force, weak nuclear force, electromagnetic force, and gravity. So between people to people, we also have such force. We also have strong nuclear force. Between some brothers, between themselves, they would die for each other. They would not be broken, despite whatever is being offered on the table. So those are very strong forces. You can't break them. Then there are weak nuclear force that always give up and always have fissure, right? And they are weak. And they emit electrons. And then you have your electromagnetic force, which is typically what we see every day. Every interaction that we have with everyone that we meet has a certain force that acts. For some reason that you meet somebody in a social setting, you sometimes will feel that you're instantly connected to the person for a reason you don't quite understand, right? Sometimes you feel that you look at that person, for some reason you just don't like him. And that's called what? It's unexplainable. And you think that, hey, that guy looks familiar and I think I like him. Is it because of my proud life relationship with the person, and then it's bringing this life, and for some reason he looks so familiar to me, right? And then when you all engage in some conversation, you say, hey, I feel like I know him for a long time. So this is the force that acts between people. So there's accrual, so it's a credit and debit. So we have forces that seems that it works because it can create positive amplification. And sometimes I think you all would have come across a situation where some stranger will come along, do some good deeds or say some good things about you, and then suddenly you get the deal because that person that you hardly knows comes along and give you the support, and then you got the deal, right? And those are called 贵人. It comes around to your circle of influence, and right, give you the deal for no reciprocation. And so for some situation, we have people who somehow do not like you, talk behind your back, and derail the prospect of getting the deal. And those are called 小人. Can you manage those 贵人 and 小人? You can't, right? So therefore, you have to know you have to know how to exert force on a network to effect movement. So in this case, even though they are moving in circular fashion, this guy at the center exert a certain influence through charisma or magnetism to cause this particle to spin, right? So in 街道杀人, you don't have to use your effort, you just use your influence to cause a certain outcome. Okay, I am going to stop here and we can talk. Jessie.
Thank you, Mr. David, for your side sharing. And may I invite Dr. Sussie to share her thoughts about this first strategy?
Yeah, for myself, I have been in China for a while last year. And also, there are a few things that happened before the COVID-19, actually. As you all know, that China has been the world's biggest producer and also importer and consumer of pork globally. And there was this African swine fever outbreak, which has a massive impact on the Chinese and also on the international market. So because of this, there's a lot of large producers are not able to produce enough to meet the domestic demand with the country. I think currently they are importing about 1.6 metric ton of pork in year 2018 before this African swine fever outbreak. Now, during this time of difficult situation, it for our industry, for the construction industry, because we are in the construction industry, we are building farm, not for human, but for animals. But it's the same when you compare. It's just the building, the construction itself, and it's the same now. for COVID-19, the construction industry in Singapore was among the first affected by COVID-19, with contractors reporting about difficulties in getting plant, equipment, personnel out of China after Chinese New Year. So what happened is that when you say about 借刀杀人, I should say that because the company that I'm working for is a European company. So when you compare to being in China, we cannot be local as they are, because then we are not price competitive. We are not what they require. They require cheap and good and fast in delivery. But when we see this COVID situation, and when we see that ASF, a lot of business are losing their place in China or worldwide. So this is where our company come in, using the shadow to cast through, like what David has mentioned. And then that put me into thoughts that say that, well, it's really true, because we used this opportunity to win a lot of projects for the last few months when I was in China. Thank you, David. I think that was a really good point that you have brought out in me to know, hey, what did I do in my company? Okay, 借刀杀人. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Sussie, for your sharing. And may I invite Shung, Mr. Shung?
Okay, good. Thanks, Sussie. Very enlightening to hear how you apply that. And David, I think it was a very deep analysis that you have given, as usual, whenever we speak. I just want to pick up on 2 points, maybe. Very quickly, I'm just trying to see how this applies. I like the idea behind how you started about the structure, because in the whole universe, as random as it seems, actually there is a structure. In the Tao system, everything there is a structure. So I like the beget I beget, I conquer, and being conquered, and all that. So I recall how I, as a young guy, after I graduated from NUS and I started, the beget I becomes very real, because there are people who actually supported me. I recall, right? They stretch out an arm when you need it the most, because you're vulnerable and things like that, right? And then and you pay it forward, because today I do the same thing, right? Because of that. So the I beget starts to manifest itself, right? The I conquer, being conquered, and the shared bonds, right? I also recall how this structure plays out in the last 25 years, because it started with 5 of us, and today we built to 700 people, right? The shared bonds was important, because without that, we couldn't have made it. There's no way, no man is an island. And I think that the shared bonds falling in place, I beget, I beget, and all that, and I conquer, which is the market itself, and keeping in view competition. Of course, these days is about collaboration. So the whole structure itself plays out, if I look back in the last 25 years, and understanding the relationship of each, I think is very important, where the stakeholders are, right? So that's the first part I like to share, so it really plays out when, without understanding the structure, like how you explain, but it just plays out in our lives. And then we kind of instinctively go along with it, and things like that. You learn little principles, but it has been known by the ancients for millennials, For the second thing I want to talk about is the COVID-19. How you mentioned point A, B, C, the points on inflection. How you can still go to A, B, and C, but you get derailed a little bit sideways, right? This points of inflection plays out in the financial markets, as you rightfully point out. I try to, I may have to use some examples which are real life, right? So hope I'm free to speak in this platform. Try not to offend anybody. You mentioned Leong, right? So you talk about kinetic and potential energy. I think in the financial market, people use this thing called leverage. All right. So you can go higher if you're ambitious, and then you can come down as well if you're on the wrong side of the deal, of the markets, especially when you do options trading in your oil, like in Leong. and things like that. And even in the property market, we heard about Oxley lately, because the real estate market is always about leveraging. All right, it's almost like you need leverage, other people's money, and then you put the deals together. But when a thing like COVID-19 comes in and pushes your boundaries, your points of inflection away, it's like a rubber band. So if there's an elasticity, right? So when you go beyond the breaking point, the point of elasticity, that's where we see these businesses who are high on leverage, right? Because you need that. That's the nature of their business, and that creates breaking points, right? So this is playing out in the COVID way, in the financial world. And I also like the example of the long shadow 借刀杀人. Okay, one of the things that we do, I've been doing, and I think David knows that, is that we are also involved with foreign investors coming into Singapore, to bring the money and things like that. And part of it is also to help them set up family offices. Basically, you bring them, here to, for investments, and going into a lot of them are also setting up businesses here. But not only that, they are setting up residency here, like permanent residence and things like that. So that's one of the things I do, right? Is to facilitate this whole process of foreign money coming in, setting up this offices, and getting people to have EPs and residency and things like that. And why is it important right now? Because the positioning that David spoke about was very key. Because in Singapore, there are a few pillars. If you look at it, what makes it even more attractive now is like the opportunity in danger, right? 危机, right? It is now playing out in Singapore because in some ways, COVID-19 creates different points of inflection for different countries. But in our case, it sort of made us stronger in that sense, because people start to realize that Singapore is like a small Monaco, of Asia, right? So where, apart from all the things that people know, the medical, the education system here, the safety for children to, to start businesses, to bring up your families and things like that, it becomes very, very attractive. The low tax rates and things like that, the abolition of estate duties. So all this has how the sun, which is like the government or our industry, has cast a longer shadow for us. It makes it easier because this becomes an attractive place for us to draw on these investors to come here, for the purpose of residency and all that. It's not something that I do or we do, but the sun has cast that shadow, and makes the proposition a very attractive one. So all we have to do is to highlight this shadow of ours, show the length of it, right? Although it's shown, but some people don't see it, so we have to show the length. But it's not created by me; it's the sun that's creating it, right? Yeah. So those are the good points. Yeah.
I think
Thank you.
I'd like to add a few things to what Shung has said. He deals with risk management, and in business we deal with a lot of risk. Every day we see risk, and how we respond to risk determines the course of action we take in business. Risk assessment is one aspect of business. After assessing risk, whether do we dare to take the position where we find the risk will have a good payback, then we take a certain position and then we play with it. Now, Leong is a great trader and has done well for Singapore as a trader, and they have bunkering services and things like that. In today's situation, it is unfortunate their cards all collapsed because of a few bad trades, right? And the amount of debt that's piled up has gone into the billions, and the owner, Mr. Lim, has tried to negotiate with his creditors, and because the negotiation cannot be settled with an extreme haircut, they would have to engage judicial manager. Now between the owner, Mr. Lim, and his creditors, they cannot establish a consensus to deal and settle. So a third party will have to come in, and the third party is the blade and the knife. So things that Mr. Lim cannot directly deal with the creditors. He will goes to the JM and ask the JM to help deal with it, right? But of course, in that situation, Mr. Lim will have lost some control. But he still, if he can get this thing through and restructure, it can still be a fighting force. And if he can come out of this, they can relieve another day. Because the life of a trader is the trade that you do that makes you great, not the trade that you do yesterday that contributes to your success. Yes, it contributes to the success, but every day is a new trade, and you have to apply different strategy in a different market. So his tomorrow's success will depend on what he do today to save his boat right now, his ship right now, so that he doesn't sink under the weight of his debt. So hopefully the JM as a leverage can help him steer the course so that he can live to fight another day. So all the thing that we are doing is to make sure we come back to the circle again so that we can live a bit longer to see the day breaks and then we live to fight another day. If you lose that fight, then it's game over. Now, in Qingdao Sanren, it is very rare, all right, that our parliament will pass an act. This is a COVID-19 temporary measure act that the government has come up with, that you can actually goes back to your contract where you cannot perform and goes to your counterparty and says, look, because of COVID, I can't perform, and the COVID-19 Temporary Measure Act protects me from performance, right? And it buys time. How often can you go back to your bank to ask your bank to defer your payment for 6 months, and without paying on your mortgages, the bank will extend it and allows you for such flexibility. So in this case, it is COVID-19 Temporary Measure Act as your lever, as the thing that changed the course for you, right? And therefore, it is the blade that you use to your counterparty and says, look, I can't perform. So that's one example. In the case of US and China, Trump has been using Australia as a pry to go to China and says, look, this is a China virus, and Chinese has to account for the damages caused to the whole world. And Trump did not say that. He's asking Australia to do that, and to the indignation of the Chinese official. And what are they claiming? They are saying that because of the damage, you need to pay damages. And the damages could be to bring down the debt between China and the rest of the trading partners. And you know, China is holding so much treasury bills, and US owe them so much money. And US has asked China to keep buying things from them. But the amount of things that they buy, particularly the agricultural goods sent to China, after consuming, there's still so much left that it will be left to rot. And they still can't bring down the level of debt. So how do we do that? So US is asking Australia to pry China, using, again, Australia through influence to irritate China, right? So again, this is an application of such strategy. So short of going to a war where US says, look, I'm not going to pay you, and China will not take that standing down. This is not in the early 1900s where the Qing dynasty was weak and the European comes into China and carve out territories and take China apart because Chinese lose the war, right? And give them Hong Kong, give them Macau, give them part of Qingdao to the Germans. This is not such time. China is strong right now, so things will be different. So going forward, we will also see superpower play between countries, and that will be interesting, right? Again, tomorrow comes, even though they have superpower play, life will goes on. We must learn how to adapt and quickly change and use the fulcrum, right? Again, when you do a leveraging, in trade, we do leveraging all the time. You take a risk, you leverage. So when you leverage, you're doing balancing, and you move the fulcrum. At a certain point, when the fulcrum is moved, you can actually leave a lot of weight with very little weight on your side because you are doing balancing through the fulcrum. Now, is fulcrum part of the game? It's part of the game because it is a lever for you to play with. So you're leaving a greater weight with little weight through the play of the fulcrum and positioning. So again, there's an approach in Qingdao Siren. So it has a lot of application, whether you use it on a daily life or whether in business we assess a risk-taker position, or whether is it at a national level or global level. People play it all the time. That's the long and short of it. So we go to the second strategy now. 笑里藏刀. 笑里藏刀 is soft posturing, right? So you see a smiling man, then always be aware. Again, we have to be aware in most situations. So situation awareness is very important. So when I met Sussie, I asked her, hey, I think you got a nice face shape. She says, hey, is that 面相? It's perception, and everything has balance and symmetry. And when you look at the face, you look for symmetry, look for cues and forms, give you quick assessment. So again, when you look at the situation, you'll look for symmetry and where the thing is not forming correctly. So those are the fault areas, right? So you need to make quick assessment of the situation. So when you deal with people, and people will have a different expression. So it's best to deal with people not at the arrogant level, because at arrogant level, instantly you generate a lot of adversity or negativity around you, right? So it's best to be smiling all the time so that you develop charm all around you first. But you can carry your knife inside hidden, it's okay. But you start with being arrogant, then everybody's knives and daggers are pointing at you because you are arrogant. So the arrogant part has to be downplayed. So it's always good to be smiley. And in fact, the smile itself carries a certain shape. Let's take a look. One line, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It's a pakwan. So if you do a very broad smile, okay, like a broad smile, you can see my 2 deep lines here. The nose here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, chin 8. And you do a very broad smile, your pakwa is very big. Now the pakwa has the effect of drawing people in. If you are very angry, for ladies, you'll make the mouth very small, right? Then you don't see a pakwa anymore. And it all converge, and then negativity would emerge. So it is always good to carry a smile, and then the smile would diffuse the situation. But your intent must be clear. You cannot be a mouse, right? You cannot be a mouse and smile and then squeak and then run away. So while you smile, you create your charm factor, you carry a knife inside. So what does 笑里藏刀means? It means soft posturing on the outside while holding a focused intent from the inside to create an illusion of softness. So is the softness real? So genuinely, it has to be real because you're quite a cool person, right? So you smile a lot, you are charming, people likes you when you see you because you, like I said, smile carries. When you smile properly, you form a nice pakwa around here. You emanate different energy, right? So for men like us, it's good for us to have 2 deep lines here, right? This signifies authority and power. So you see decorated people, high-level officials, when they speak, they would have this very broad line that shows. And these are cues, again, cues and signs that you see. And very unconsciously, you wouldn't probably appreciate it. You will be drawn towards them. So within the softness lies a hardness. So 笑里藏刀 is also a strategy to use, a tactical level strategy. Now, what you see in the yellow line is the hardness. You're very focused. You're still traveling in a straight line, while you try to meet this blue particle to meet it, right? And you cause a lot of confusion by being soft and adaptable and very fluid with your other movement, the circular movement around the intent, to give the illusion that you are flexible. You spin in all ways, right? But your intent here is singular, focused, and determined. So I'm using a lot of graphics to show, because a lot of us are mathematical, right? We can see graphics, and you look at this pattern, you probably knows how to apply it. All right, I'm going to stop here. Let's have a chat on this.
Thank you, Mr. David Leong. And now, may I invite Dr. Sussie? I saw you were doing this, so you're ready.
Pakwa, right? Yeah.
Yes.
To be honest, I think in the years of my working experience, I have faced a lot of challenges. I meet a lot of people from different regions, different continents, different places. But very often, like what David has said, that 笑里藏刀. So you keep that cool, keep that smile. Yeah, it's true. It's just like the recent project that I have just won last week. When I went into this meeting, it was a 3 days meeting. The first day meeting, I was down there with my team. I was online, and they are physically on with the client. Okay, first thing is I don't have any eye contact with them. I don't know how they feel. And I'm literally just looking at the screen, and the screen was showing only one person out of maybe 30 people in the room. The whole strategic team was there to listen to us on our project charter. So for me, I felt that this is the first time, because I have never been in a negotiation whereby I'm not face to face. I do not have the feel. I do not get to see the eye. I do not have the eye contact with them. I cannot feel at all. All I can see is the screen in front of me and some voices from behind. Now, but on the other hand, they can see me because I'm the only one on the screen. So, of course, it works, because I was just there smiling with my pakwa. Very nice, right? And I absorbed every detail they attack on every single line of our proposal that was given to them. And at the end of the day, it was an 8 hours fight that day. At the end of the day, I think all my team, they are totally exhausted. And I got my colleague from my headquarters say that, okay, Sussie, we forget about the deal. We don't want to waste any time. Client is so negative towards us. We should not go ahead. And then I just smiled, and I told all my colleagues, what we need to do now is we have to stay united as a team. We cannot fight among ourselves and start stating, oh, that's your mistake because you didn't do this, and that's why the client came up with this. So even in front of the client, I had a conclusion session. At that time, of course, the stakeholder, the biggest boss, was there to face me on screen. All I could do is, okay, my team failed very badly in that presentation, but I still maintain that smile. And I think because of that smile, when I have this face-to-face session with him on screen, with that smile, he told me, okay, ask your team to go back, but come back tomorrow. So what does it mean? See, that smile works, even though I don't have confidence in winning the project, but I just show them that I can do it, with that smile, and I go back. And on the second day, we had another long negotiation of about 5 hours. And I was again online. I can't see anyone. But of course, throughout the night, I took all my team together and said, okay, we have to work as a team, because me alone, I cannot fight this battle. We have to go together. All I can do is just that smile, so that, I give confidence that my team, they are a good team. So on the second day, 5 hours it took us, and they said, okay, we'll award you this contract. So when my colleague in Denmark woke up in the afternoon, which is their morning, with 3 p.m. our time in Singapore, it's 9 a.m. in Denmark. Before we went to bed the earlier night, he was so negative that we would not win this project at all. When he woke up the next day, he went online, he said, what happened? Why was it totally a different story yesterday? I said, okay, because I smiled, and I was very very, very positive about my team, even though we didn't present well, we were not ready, but we know that we still have time behind to come back to them, and that's where we were. We won on project. Yeah.
Very good.
Very good. So it's more about confidence level. So when you say about this is more about confidence. So this bakwa is confidence, right? Even though it's deep inside, I'm a cat, but with this face, I'm a lion. I'm confident. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, JC, to you.
Congratulations, Dr. Sussie, for winning the project. Very good news for you. And next, may I invite Shung, Mr. Shung, to share his thoughts. I need to unmute you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So, Sussie, very nice story there. Straight away reminds me of the picture that you post just now, the cat and then the lion. Maybe the title should be Smiling Tiger and Hidden Dragon. Smiling Tiger. Okay, the other thing is, David, thanks for talking about the 2 lines here. I was very consoled. It's the first time someone tell me it's good to have 2 lines. I was trying to get rid of them, you know, because it's very deep lines, but maybe the deeper, the better. So the pakwa is strong. Okay, so okay, regarding this thing, I was just trying to think, what can I share about this? I like to cast my mind back to many years ago. In my first year, a good friend of mine, the 2 of us were trying to break into the aviation industry. So we're trying to design a what we call a loss of license, because the aviation industry, the pilots and all, they have license, right? So you know, we're trying to design a loss of license program for them. But obviously we were 2 young chaps, you know, that just came out of university, and at the time the aviation industry was really very established. I mean, you know, for such a long time. So there were very big players. So this is like David and Goliath. But we had this naive, you know, when you're young, you're kind of naive, like you just, you know, you fall, you just don't know how to feel the pain. So what happened was, we knew that we had a knife in our jacket, in a sense, because we saw that as much as the big players have the solutions, right? We were addressing a part of the solution that the aviation people can't see, you know, but we can see it very clearly. Okay, so we didn't intend to take the whole big market. We just want to be very custom made. But it's very hard to convince when people are very established in their thought. It took us almost a year back and forth. I can't imagine, you know, doing that again, because it's you know, you're with union leaders and all that, you know, and these are very established union leaders and all that. And then you just smile and smile after the meeting. You smile and you whack each other's back, and like, what the hell are you doing? You say, let's continue this, like, you know, you. But we did this back and forth over a year, and finally we got it, you know, because each time we go there and we refuse to budge because we knew that we had a good proposition. But it's so hard to let people see when things are established, right? So, but the smile works, lah. And then the dagger, I would say that it's because we could see the proposition that we have. It's just, how do you put it across? You know, how do you get people who are so steep in their ways to look at you, or even to get a chance? So we do all kinds of things just to get a step in the door. But it was good because it was the first time ever that a custom-made thing was actually given in a market to the aviation industry. So I think that was, till today, we still have relationships with them and all that. So it's good. Yeah. Okay. So just
Thank
keep
you.
the focus. Just keep the focus, like what David said. You have a proposition and just keep the focus. Yeah.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shung. And back to you, David. Mr. David.
I'd like to add a few things. Number one, the dagger in the chest. The dagger in the chest is your intent, and the intent is usually what drive actions. It's not really a dagger that kills, right? It's the intent that has to be there. If we operate without the intent, then we'll be floating like dust particles in the air, like the Brownian motion. It floats everywhere. And then when dust particle settles, when you look through the light with a cylinder of dust, and it all looks random. Or when we stand at a traffic light, we see people crossing the road, but every one of the person that's crossing the road has an intent. They need to go somewhere, right? But because we are observer, every one of them looks random, but we can't tell the intent. So every particle has intent. So it is very good for us to have a strong intent. Never mind whether we can be successful or not successful, but for so long as the intent is deep and determined, the outcome will change. Now in a Gua, in the 64 trigram, the 64卦 in I Ching, there's 6 lines. You have 3, right? And the outside tree represents the external environment. The inside tree represents your thoughts, your heart, your desire, your drive, what you intend to do. The intent is very important because the intent is the one that drives your action. So if you wake up one day and say, I intend to be somebody, and then all your days will be filled with activities that will drive to make you that somebody. For a lot of businessmen like us, we started poor. When I graduated from NUS, families poor, hardly have few $100s to our name. When we attend school in NUS, you see your friends going to pub, and you don't have money, you don't join them because you don't feel inferior. So how do we choose to rise to become where we are? So I walk out of my library, Hong Sui Library in BZ, and it was in a very late evening, and I look up at the sky and with the stars and ask, when will the world be mine? When I was in university, very poor lad with no resources, no connections, and you ask yourself, when will the world be mine? And every day you work with a very strong intent to make things happen. So your internal 3 lines will start to change, right? When your internal 3 line change, your external 3 line will change as well. So there'll be one point where the 3 lines on top and 3 lines below will have alignment, and that's where you have the first big break. And the intent therefore is very strong. So the intent therefore in this case in Qingdao Saren, it's not really a dagger to kill, but your intent must be focused and determined. So in today's situation, COVID-19, so what is there to deal with, right? You are not saying that you take a knife to kill somebody to get their possession. That's not the way the strategy is to be played out. Because if you do an evil tactics, you are damaging all your connection and your forces. Because when people deal with you and they know that you are an evil person and you never have equitable distribution, people deal with you once only, and then they wouldn't want to deal with you again because you you lose trust. Once you lose trust, people will not want to deal with you. But if you're a businessman, you know that trust is everything, right? Your words are your bonds. You say what you do, you will do it, right? Never mind the cost of it because it is your commitment to get the thing done. Then things will change. I mentor a lot of startups, tech startups, business startups. I was once a startup myself. So again, for founders and startup entrepreneur, we have always to be flexible on the outside, very soft on the outside, because we are raising money from the market. But our intent must be very strong. The internal intent, which is the dagger or holes into a chest, must be very strong. And when we see an opportunity to strike to raise money, sit round Series A, Series B, Series C, and mezzanine round with last investor coming in to do your cornerstone valuation. We have to be very flexible, right? So from those experiences that I've gathered, I share with my mentee that your intent makes all the difference. So the intent is the dagger. So in today's situation, we just have to, again, look on the bright side. We can choose to be an optimist. We can choose to be a pessimist in today's COVID-19. But I chose to be an optimist and a whole intent. And every day I wake up, I look for opportunity to deal with. Because we make money by arbitraging values, right? In a bad time, you still have a trough and a peak. And we go for the trough and the peak to arbitrage the values to make your margin. So margin are made every day, right? Even in a bad market, when the stock market are plunging, there are people who makes money too. In Forex, the pairing of the currencies, people makes money anytime because they are only betting on the 2 point, the trough and the peak. And then they bet on the difference. And as the market move, along what? Long time. So they make money based on the potential energy, wrote down kinetic energy over time. So again, money can be made, even in bad times. So that brings an end to the second strategy. So shall we go to the third one? Hun Shui Mo Yu. Hun Shui Mo Yu is premising strategy on the confusion, fears, and murkiness of the situation to derive certain advantage. Today's situation is exactly that. It's murky, uncertain, volatile, and complex, right? Because we have never seen a situation where airports get closed down, countries get locked down, people have to stay at home, and we can't meet and socialize. And the whole interaction between people to people, business to business, people and business, even in education, change. And can this situation persist? I think AC, after Corona, the way we deal with things, the way we interact, the way we socialize would all change. Now, we're all looking forward to the day where the CB will be lifted, right? The circuit breaker will be lifted, and since normalcy returns. But please bear in mind the date that is set by the government is arbitrary, and it is not a fixed day where when the thing is lifted, the market recovers. This is uncertain time, right? This is a cloudy water, murky water, right? When Lawrence Wong, together with Prime Minister, together with the cabinet, try to come up with strategy to contain the problem, they are all working on numbers and data to make their judgment call. It is risk assessment. And if you look at the way our government is operating, they are operating based on margin as well. They are allowing this thing to happen, people to interact, because they cannot have a long clamp down for too long because lack of air, literally lack of air and interaction will kill the economy and people. So in this period, air travel is down. Singapore depends a lot on foreign visitors to come in, and that's literally dead, right? We are a hub, we are a transport hub, and we need movement of goods and services, and this thing don't happen, and we are dead. Jurong Island, we are a refinery of oil and crude, and the crude prices have gone into a dismal fall, and it is again unprecedented. If you look at even the F&B, outlets in retail shops and restaurants earn by PSF. They have to maximize the space to make sure that they earn based on PSF to squeeze as many people in the space as practically possible. so that they maximize their turnaround based on PSF. Retail space are measured on that, F&B based on turn of table. Right now, with the social distance measure, we need to have that social distance. How can the restaurant make money based on that social distance, even if it opens? So will things turn back to normal? It will not. So business will need to change the way they operate, and then we have to change the way we interact and eat, at least for the long period until coronavirus goes away. So in this situation of confusion, fears, and a murkiness in the environment, how do we derive certain advantage? For those of us who are risk taker, we're there to put our hands in our murky water and then try to feel around and grab a fish and pull it out and say, hey, I got it, right? But many of us, because of murkiness of the water, even though we know that today's market is very, very depressed, who are there to take the money and play it in the market? Do you dare? Where the bank stocks and the SIA shares were always permanently quite high. Who would have imagined that our treasure SIA will have a day where all our planes are docked and can't fly except for cargo planes? We will never imagine that, right? Just 10, 15 years ago, you have your Keppel, you have a Sembawang as oil rig contractors, and we are world number 1, number 2. And suddenly with the drop of oil prices, this thing suddenly becomes a non-issue for them. They can't go out to sea to dredge oil anymore because the cost of oil is so low. The cost of going to dredge the oil already costs more than the barrel of oil, right? So industry will turn because of this adverse condition. So who were there to bet? So those who dare to take a position and go to the market to play. The easiest is to go to the exchange to buy shares and to bet on the pairs of currency, right? And you still can make money because you dare to take a position. Because you dare to take the position, because the market is confused. When the market is confused, the variance of the prices between the trough and the valley will always be high. Always high. Because people are afraid, right? They will dump. And those who are risk-loving will start to buy. Can you buy at the low? You can't. You buy along the gradient of the dropping slide. And then you buy down in average. And then you hold it. Hold it over time. And then those who dare to put their balls on the table to play will be the one that would benefit from the capital appreciation when market returns. Market will bound to return. Market will never be always like that because it is never the pattern of nature to be like that. People will say, when? The risk taker never asks you when, never ask when. They ask, is it now? Is it now? I'll do it. Because they know the when will come. But the pessimists will always ask when, and they will defer their action because they're afraid the when will never come. The when will always come. So that's how we make money, by arbitraging values and not knowing when will come, but when will come. But do we want to take position today? By taking position today and putting your hand into murky water, 浑水摸鱼, right? You're taking a position. Then wait for your turn. When the sun rises again, when the stock and the asset value goes up, you goes out along with it. I'm going to stop here, and we have a chat on this.
Thank you, Mr. David. And Dr. Sussie, may I have your sharing?
Very interesting. Yeah. This is literally the situation where all businesses are looking at what will happen next. And when we were tasked to do some risk assessment from our CFO, me and my team, we sat down and said, what should we write? Because even you and me and all of us sitting in this room, we would not know what's going to happen for the next few months. And how can we write or draw or maybe make a forecast for the next 6 months? And of course, I think at this point of time, when I spoke to my team, I say, okay, we have only 2 things that we need to do. We have to boost our confidence level. So we just have to swim, and then, like David said, just swim and then try to catch a fish later. So it's the intent, like David, you have mentioned to us that, it's the intent. When you say that the intent must be strong in the team, for myself, for me and my team. I think it's the intent that must be strong, and we have to be very positive that, okay, it's going to happen. It's going to be like this. And of course, back again, when it fall, when I put this across to my team and I say that, okay, we just have to do it, and with our feel that we know that this is the direction we are doing, this is how we're going to do our forecast. Whether or not that's going to happen in our sales pipeline, doesn't matter. We just swim. So it's then return what my colleague has to me is that this is the trust that they have in me. So when you talk about inside this trust element, the company, for example, for the client, to us, we have this the credibility, the reliability, and of course the part of it is the intimacy. But what is carrying these 3 things up there to balance, I think is us as self-orientation, meaning to say that we need to have the confidence ourselves. We need to let the people around us, I mean the people around us means my team, the army behind me, to build the trust in me, so that when I'm doing the planning, the structure and tools and this, I think it's something that we need to move on. It allows us to move from one direction to another. The intent must be strong, like David said. Yeah, it's true. Intent must be strong. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Dr. Sussie. Yeah, the intent must be really strong in a situation like this. And may I invite Mr. Shung for his sharing, please? Unmute.
Okay. Okay. Can you hear me? Can I? Okay, so this last part, wow, it's a long day. This last part is murkiness and chaos. I think maybe for the 2 ladies, maybe for David and myself, we've probably around that same time, we've seen about a handful of crises already, isn't it? After we left school, we have the Asian financial crisis, 97, 98, and then the internet bubble, 2000, then SARS, and then we have the mother of all wars, which is the Iraq War, Desert Storm, right? And the oil crisis around that time, and then the mother of all financial crises, which is the Lehman Brothers, and then now. Of course, this is the mother of all crises, because even during those times, we were not locked down. So this is a new game. Looking back during those times, maybe I like to talk about the word intent. Intent, I like to say, maybe it's about the cycles and control. That we realize that maybe for the first time, if you are young, or for the first time, governments and a lot of parties in the world realize that we have less control than we think we have. All this while, maybe we think we have reached this stage of advancement, we have a lot of control, but just this one thing shows how vulnerable we all are. So we cannot control a lot of things. So the only thing we can control is intent is related to your thoughts, right? So there are only 2 things we can control in our whole life, which is our own thoughts. Our own thoughts will condition what kind of actions we will take, all right? Which is the intent manifesting into action. So these are the only two control. The rest of things, if we worry about it, no use, because we have no control over them, right? So this intent is very key, as what Sussie has said about how you can calibrate this in bring this thing to your team, because a lot of people will be struggling around the murkiness, thinking that they have lost control, they don't know what to control, and then they're lost. But as long as you can keep the thoughts by understanding things, even understanding the strategies and things like that, then you will have, planted the right kind of intent and the right thought. Keep it there, and then your actions will be right. So in this murkiness and all that, finance wise, looking back, when I faced the first crisis was the Asian financial crisis. You always think that everything is going to be over lah, but fortunately I had good people around me who kind of like shielded, like put a blinker on like the horses, right? And say that, look, you want to look at so many problems, there's so many problems, right? But just look at what you can do and look at what you can think, right? So looking at it now, things always recover and go up on an upscale, right? Because there's more money than ever lah, right? In the markets, right? Because things get expanded with inflation and things like this. There's more technology, more money, and more things right now. Except that we have to understand that we are undergoing a global realignment, right? So we used to be very Western centric. So I think power and things are shifting to the East Asia. So where are we catching on all those things? So as a person who have people with me and things like that, they always calibrate the thinking. I think that's the only thing we can control, knowing that after every crisis, things will restore back. Not necessarily in the old way, because a lot of things will change. A lot of jobs will not come back anymore, but new jobs will be created. All right, and then new powers, new superpowers, new sort of. So where are we going to align our business to make it more resilient? I'm not quite sure if Corona is going to go away. It might stay with us for a very, very long time, except that it's cyclical. It will come back, go away, come back, go away, because or a new form of mutated form or whatever. So then the future will be, the murkiness is not going to end after this lockdown. We will have to ask ourselves, how do we future proof and be more resilient, right? What kind of business can withstand this? We can see that businesses that are more than 50 years old, 80 years old, worth millions and billions of dollars, suddenly just crumble in 2 months, big companies. Like, what do you expect the SMEs then? I mean, you're such big companies and then you just suddenly fall and you have not only knee-jerk, but you're literally kneeling on the floor. So how do we future-proof our business, or what sort of businesses? If you're going to do a startup now, you have to ask yourself that question very seriously. That's number one. If you are running a business now, you have to ask yourself, bet on another Corona coming, in another cycle, and how, from this hindsight, how are you going to future-proof your business in that sense? So all this will require a lot of thinking in this murkiness. And I took a lot of time in these 2 months to declutter myself as well, because we all make so many assumptions in our business, right? So all the assumptions go out the window. So a lot of decluttering, clarity of mind, with meditation and all that, it helps. Yeah, and things like that. So that's what I want to say about murkiness. Just keep your mind clear, then you can go through any kind of crisis, going forward. Keep your mind clear. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Shung. So let's do a conclusion of this whole session. May I start with Dr. Sussie?
Of course, there's 3 things today. First is this session has been like going through a pen camp, going through a camp session. A walk. Just the 3 strategies is already enough for me today to learn that I'm going through this camp. It's called a pain camp, because David has put in all the drill and see where's your pain, what's happening with your business right now, grilling me out and see where I am. So to me, I feel that yes, at the end of the day, it's all up in your mind. Like Shung has says that your mind have to be clear. If your mind is clear and you have an intent, nothing is impossible. So in the business, we should not be giving up, even though we are facing such a huge challenge, not only in Singapore, global. For how long, nobody knows. Yeah. And of course, like Shung say, it's not the first time in the business world with all these ups and downs. So it covers what David has said, that everything that goes up must come down, and then the curve, and then they expand. Okay, good one, David. I learned a lot today, but it's also a time where I do self-reflection of myself, actually. Where am I now? what actually am I thinking right now? Just based on these 3 strategies has already brought me into the pen game, and I need to think about how I will move on with my team from now on. Thank you, David. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Sussie. And may I also invite Mr. Shung?
Actually, okay. Actually said all I want to say. I just want to say thank you for this session. That we are not alone. Okay, in this turbulent times or whatever you call it. Just know that I think these sessions I appreciate very much. Thanks, David, for I know we've spoken about all these things, but this session is really a new thing for me. I know you conducted a few, so I'm glad I come in today. But it's also a feeling that we are all in this together. We are not alone. All right, so we're gonna have to write this through, and then if we can with sharings and all that, I think it's just gonna help everybody lah. So yeah, I wish everyone the best, and yeah, keep moving forward.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Shung. And back to you, Mr. David.
Okay, I like to wrap it up by saying a few things. This COVID-19 created a very volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment for all of us. And because of the uncertain and ambiguous and highly volatile situation, there are a lot of fear in the market. Job will be lost, company will be folded, there'll be a lot of demises, death of companies, big ones, companies that are highly geared and with a lot of debts piled on them. They cannot recover because the air that is coming in, the fluidity, the cash flow may not come in at a point where they need it. They may roll over and die. But comes tomorrow, the same sun, the same air will foster a new generation of businesses. And this new generation of businesses will flourish and they will grow to become the next big thing. For business people like us, the most critical thing is for us to be able to be situationally aware of the arbitrage value that exists in uncertain times. We won't be able to pick up some properties and stocks and assets at really depressed price. But we must be daring to do it because today's market, we have an interest rate of near zero. If we dare to play the market with the liquidity in the market provided by the government, you are taking the asset and reinventing how you should transact and deal with the problem. Now you look at movies and you look at times when people are in the 1800s, early 1900s, or even when we are born, we don't have mobile phone. When I was in NUS, carrying a mobile phone was a brick phone, right? The Motorola one, right? And it was already a big thing then. But the phone is still a phone. It's just a communication. Proud to the phone, it was a pager. And it was so sexy to carry a pager. And then your phone will buzz, and then you tell a teacher, I need to go out to make a phone call with 10 cents, right? And conversation to get conducted. So is the phone more important or the conversation that was more important? I think it was the conversation that made things happen, right? The conversation between people. So today the conversation is still the same between whether we have a really smart iPhone or whether it's a Samsung phone. Is it a phone that's important? No, I think it's like still the conversation that's important. After Corona, it's still conversation that is going to be important because that's the deal, right? Is it the pipe that's important or the water that flows through the pipe that's important? It is the water that flows through the pipe that is important. You can be building very complicated infrastructure, but with no connection to A and B and no water flowing through it, is still an empty pipe work. And it doesn't work that way. So goes back to think about those days where you don't have mobile phone and or internet connection. Life still goes on, right? We still drive to meet the person, have a conversation to get the deal strike. Now it's easier. Now we can go on Zoom and have a conversation and still can strike deals, right? So the method of transaction changed. But does the transaction change? No. Conversation change? Maybe the language changed a little bit, but still deals are formed. So when tomorrow comes, know therefore that the same air and the same sunlight would foster a new community and flora of businesses that will become the new winner for tomorrow. So just position ourselves to play that game when a lot of other companies die. It is necessary so because it is cyclical, it is organic. And if a company does too much leveraging, it is natural they have to reinvent themselves again. So high employment rate will never remain high unemployment for a long time. And I think we have a very enlightened government. And our government is doing everything to make sure that we are contained. Now, people are saying many things in this situation. And the dormitory infection of the workers and saying, why are we doing such a bad job? But I hope that for those of us who say something like that of the government, take a look at all the labor importing countries and how they deal with their workers. Whether are they giving them fair wage or give them wage at all? Do they feed them? Do they test them? Do they take care of them? Do they have ministers visiting the dormitories and seeing the workers themselves and making sure that the comfort of workers are taken care of, food are provided, and wages are paid? This is not to say that our government is taking care of workers, but because I think this is responsibility of a government. And this is again back to trust. When this whole thing is over, people complain, how come the dorm is of such standard? The workers' dorm is not as described by people, but we may not understand the context of this worker coming to work in Singapore, right? It says the salary is low, but those salaries, when they are earned by the workers in Singapore, when they remit back to their home country, it's multiplied many times over. And many of them are enjoying the hard work that is done in Singapore for them to transfer money back. And our government is providing even the remittance services to allow workers to transfer money back. So I think the compact between people, the government, and today's situation will only pan out, not now, because now we are in the heat of everything. People can complain, right? Past this event, people will look back and see how Singapore deals with this. Because we want to measure, therefore we have high numbers. People who do not measure and count, where do they get the numbers, right? Because we count every one of them, therefore we have very high numbers. But it doesn't matter for us because it is the correct and proper thing to do. The only indicators that we should be looking at is the fertility rate. How many people die as a result of it? Because we are providing care and concern and healthcare facility to ensure this is taken care of. Fertility rate is so low, right? So in all, this situation calls for a lot of confusion on the ground. But for so long as we stick together and understand that the game is still going to be played, it's not game over. It's just that the rules of engagement change. The logistic flow change. Logistic flow of people, capital, service, goods, money will change. Supply chain will change. But does it still travel from A to B? It will still travel to A to B. But the pathway will change. But it still arrive from A to B. So today, whatever we have discussed, bear in mind, it's just moving from A across the river to B. Never mind the pathway taken. The sun will still shine, the air will still be around, we will survive, and we need to survive. I will end this here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. David Leong, for the very insightful sharing. And with that, I would like to end the session. And before that, I would like to thank Dr. Sussie and Mr. Shung for joining us for this episode 5. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Stay safe.
Stay safe. Bye.